PromQl is 28% of the Prometheus Certified Associate exam and is the domain that fails people. I watched engineers who run the Prometheus in production every day and still pick the wrong function under the pressure. I was almost one of them. This video is what I needed 2 weeks before I sat for the PCA. The real domain map that reps that are built to catch you and exactly what I did to prepare. I'll show you the score at the end of this video. Most monitoring certs test whether you can click through the dashboard. This one does not. The PCA tests whether you can understand the data model. Prometheus is a time series database where every metric is a set of labeled samples. If that sentence feels abstract, promql is going to feel random, because every promql follows from it. And the questions are multiple choice, but the wrong answers are plausible on purpose. Rate and irate will show up in the same question, designed to look interchangeably. You have to know which one the scenario wants and why. Here are the real numbers straight from the Linux Foundation curriculum. Around 60 multiple choice question exam, 90 minutes, and you need 75% to pass. It's only proctored and there are no hands-on component, so it requires knowing definitions and behavior precisely. You will see all the 5 domains below and their distribution. Notice how flat that is after promql. There are no throwaway domain. A lot of prep guides tell you to obsess over the promql and coast on the rest. Promql is the biggest single slice where I would start, but fundamentals plus observability is 38% on their own. And instrumentation and alerting are another 34%. Ignore any of those and you are leaving the real points on the table. Promql first and promql daily. You cannot read the sections and move on, you need repetitions. The exam hands you an expression and asks you to predict the output, or describes a scenario and asks which expression matches. That's a doing skill, not a reading skill. 3 things that trip people up. First, rate versus irate. Rate gives you a per second average across the whole range window, so it smoothes out short spikes. That's what you want for alerts and dashboards. Irate only looks at the last 2 samples, so it reacts instantly and it's jumpy. The classic exam question describes a brief spike and asks which function reflects it. Irate shows the jump because it's reading those last 2 points. Rate averages it away. Know the difference code. Second trap, label matchers. Job equals not exporter is exact match. Job matches not dot star is a reject match. Job does not match dot star test dot star excludes anything with test in the name. These are everywhere on the exam. Third trap, aggregation with by and without. Some by job keeps only the job label. Some without instance drops the instance label and keeps the rest. They produce different label sets, and the question hinges on exactly what labels survive. If you have to, sketch the label set before and after. And histogram quantile is the one advanced function worth practicing once for real. It needs a bucket metric, the underscore bucket series with a LE label. See it work once and it stops being scary for you. This is the conceptual half of the exam, 38% together, and it's the easiest points on paper if you are actually operating Prometheus. It starts with one non-negotiable idea, Prometheus pulls. It scrapes targets on an interval. Targets do not push to Prometheus. Push versus pull is an observability concept question and it shows up more than once. The push gateway is a narrow exception. It exists for short-lived batch jobs that finish before Prometheus would ever scrape them. It's not a general push endpoint for long-lived services, and the exam exactly tests you to know the difference. Using it for normal service defeats the pull model and leaves the stale metrics behind. And now the service discovery. Kubernetes service discovery is on the exam. The thing to remember is that Prometheus uses relabeling to return the raw labels from the service discovery into the final label set on your metrics. Instrumentation and exporters is another 16%, and the highest yield thing in it is the 4 metric types. This is the most common non-promql question on the whole exam, and the deck that I linked earlier barely mentions it. So don't skip this. Counter only goes up and resets to 0 on a restart. You never graph a counter row. You always wrap it in a rate. That connects straight to why rate exists. Gauge goes up and down. You read the value directly. For example, it's the memory usage, temperature, or the queue depth. Histogram buckets observations on a server side. It gives you underscore bucket, underscore sum, and underscore count series. It aggregates cleanly across instances, and it's what fits histogram quantile. Summary calculates quantiles on a client side. The catch, and this is on the exam trap, is that you cannot aggregate those quantiles across instances afterward. Histogram versus summary comes down to that one trade-off. Aggregate later with a histogram or compute up from with a summary. And naming conventions are direct questions. Underscore total for counter, base units like seconds and bytes, one metric measuring one thing. 3 points if you've read the conventions once. Alerting and dashboards is 18%, not the afterthought most guides make it. 3 things earn the points here. The for close. The alert with for 10 minutes only fires if the condition holds continuously for 10 minutes. That's flap prevention, and questions about alert firing behavior lean on it. Recording rules. They pre-compute an expensive promql query and store the results as a brand new metric, so slow dashboards get fast. Note that they produce a new time series. And know the division of labor. Prometheus evaluates the rules and decides an alert is firing. Alert Manager is a separate component that handles grouping, silencing, and routing to receivers like email or Slack. Grafana is what draws the dashboards. The exam expects you to know which component does which job. I spent 3 days doing nothing but promql. Local Prometheus, not exporter scraping my own laptop, real queries against the real data, not docs, not tutorials, just writing queries until I could predict the output before I hit the enter. That was the single most useful thing I did. Reading the actual Prometheus configuration docs helped too. Not block summaries, real docs, because the alerting rule format is a specific and the exam uses the exact field names from those pages. What didn't help was a blog post prep guides. Must give you a shallow pass over the domains and leave you stranded on the promql questions. And please don't assume that production experience carries you here. I knew the rate from the work, but I had generally never checked how a rate differs until I sat down to study. One reframe that made this whole exam predictable to me is I stopped thinking query the database and started thinking transform one set of labeled time series. Every promql operation is a transformation on a label sets. So when I hit an aggregation, I don't ask what it does to the numbers. I ask what it does to those labels. Once that clicked, the questions stopped feeling random for me. If you want to find your gaps before the exam day instead of during it, I built a practice test on the GetMike website. It's a promql heavy on purpose and it covers metric types and alerting too. The Code Cloud courses and the Prom Labs training are both solid, and every official doc I linked on is on the screen now. All the study material I collected lives at the GitHub repository. So let's get to the real results. My score was 82 out of 100 and it was my first attempt, and the passing score, as you know, is 75. It was the part of the Golden Cube Astronaut Pass where I did 15 out of 15 CNCF certifications. And here is the honest take. I already knew the architecture from the work, and promql and metric type distinction were the part that I really had to sit and earn by doing the repetitions. You can do this exam too. You just don't need to read the promql. You need to write and understand the promql. You need to do the real queries. You need to set up the Prometheus and practice with that. After that, you need to find your gaps and close them. Links for the preparation below. Good luck.